Hey guys, welcome back to Real Housewives Recaps. Today we're talking Meghan and Harry, the real story by Lady Colin Campbell. We are on chapter 9 today, and I am excited to dive into this with you. It's Friday, I'm feeling good, I'm caffeinated. I'm excited to be doing this. I hope you're excited too. Today is Scary Stare Edition. My apologies if it gives you nightmares, but we are going to take a look at pictures in the background of one Miss Meghan staring into your soul. If you want to further support my show, definitely check out my Patreon. We have lots of fun stuff going on over there. I will be shouting out my executive producers later in the show, but in the meantime, let's get into chapter 9. You guys, every time I think these two can't get any worse, they do stuff like they did in chapter 9. And it's nothing new. It's just the way that Lady C explains it. It's so over the top how obnoxious these two are. And it's not that I'm surprised by it anymore. Well, I guess I am. It's like I can't believe it. If I was watching something on TV, like a fiction show, and the main characters were this obnoxious, I would probably turn it off and say, this is just too fake. Nobody's this awful, but here we are with these two. So it's all about how Harry and Meghan made everything difficult for the palace. And I think the reason this irks me so much, it's just, think about these two whining on Oprah about, I was fed to the wolves and we got no help and I had to Google the national anthem, which you all have pointed out and I've pointed out strikes me so funny because that means her moron husband couldn't even help her with that. He claims to have sought all this therapy, couldn't help her find a therapist when she was quote unquote struggling, and he couldn't help her learn the national anthem. I mean, things like that. It's just so ridiculous, but I digress. I'm feisty today. But no, so they go into how rough they made it for everybody because they're so busy coordinating the California people. That was their well, I say there. I think he's just eating crayons. I think she's leading him around. So her priority, I'm sorry, I just looked up and saw the picture and it's just funny timing. I put these pictures in place usually before I record, so I did not do that on purpose. But here she is masterminding things with her scary smile, or scary stare, but so her priority was California, the whole Sunshine Sacks of it all. Remember, those are the people she had hired to represent her in California. So she never disbanded her California representatives when she married Harry. The palace discovered that she had instructed them to drum up commercial opportunities for her to exploit. And she didn't want small-time things. No, that's not good enough. Nothing would be, of course. Each project should, quote, be worth millions of dollars. Of course, they think they're worth that. And then flash forward to today. Not today, but around now, didn't the Spotify guy admit to overpaying for them? And they only did 6, 8 episodes? I don't even know. But they only did a few episodes, got paid millions of dollars. And now the Spotify guy, I believe, has either been fired or left. I'm not sure. But because he spent too much on programs like theirs. So something interesting that popped up in this chapter as I've been covering all the terrible fashions lately, and it's been so much fun. So definitely check those out if you haven't seen the videos. But something interesting that Lady C points out, I'm on page 246 if you're reading along with me, but Meghan was rumored to have asked designers to give her credits for dresses which she had already worn, which the Duchy of Cornwall had paid for. She was also alleged to be making deals with suppliers, people like jewelers, for promoting their wear. So the way I'm taking this, because I had to reread this part, I think what she's saying is by give her credits, I don't know if she means monetarily. That's how I'm taking it. She wanted paychecks for things that she didn't herself pay for and had already previously worn. But for drawing attention to the brand, she was either trying to get, I don't know, money or credit with the company itself. I'm not sure, but any of those are ridiculous. If any of that's true, that is so ridiculous. She didn't even pay for it. Duchy of Cornwall did. I would love nothing more than for King Charles to say, listen, I pay for people's stuff who worked for us. You didn't work for us, and then send them a big fat bill for it. That would be brilliant. You guys, then it goes on to say that, quote, her ultimate goal was to be president of the United States of America. Blech. I don't get political here. I don't want to discuss politics. I'll just say in a nutshell, what is she thinking? What does she think? Why would anybody want that job? I think that job sucks. Regardless of which team you play for, that job sucks. Who wants that? But I think with an egomaniac like this, of course she wants that. So everybody will know her name. I'm not sure. But she's apparently confusing her role she did when she gave speeches at the UN and then keeps writing the coattails of that stupid story about the soap and the advertising claim. So how's that going to translate to a political career? Again, I don't want to go into politics discussion here. I get like right now I'm shaking my shoulders. Like I get a grossed out, like slimy feeling. Of course you would want to go into politics. But on the topic of roles and career moves and such, if this was just a career move, being a royal duchess, then why could she not, or would she not, make the necessary judgments to fulfill her royal role satisfactorily? I mean, I think the question answers itself. My guess is it has to do with, well, then she wouldn't have the victim narrative that she's apparently banked on up until now. But it's backfiring, right? I think her disapproval rating is at its all-time low. So obviously that didn't work out. So I just wonder how she's going to pivot, what kind of victim thing she's going to do next. I suspect she'll have more content after coronation. Okay, so Lady C goes on to explain Meghan is not lazy, but she prefers dramatic stuff. She understands how important glamorous photo ops to her legions of followers, but she relishes popping into soup kitchens and visiting survivors of disasters, as long as she knows she's getting, photographed for it and staying in the media for it. But the reality is, anybody who isn't cut out for the day-to-day, and Lady C explains it's boring day-to-day in the royal life because you're doing so much selfless work, and you don't always get credit for everything. That's just not how it works. And so it just wasn't going to go well for Meghan. And she suspects, and I suspect, and we all suspect that Meghan caught on like, oh, this is actually kind of a selfless job in some ways, with rewards, of course. But and that's what made her unable to hack it. But of course, she was never interested in being a working royal. She only wanted the platform to catapult herself into being more famous. Well, to quote Lady C, to being a greater worldly success. And she's been achieving that objective. I would say she's become more notorious than anything, but her name's out there. But what if she I guess the question is, what if she had been able to adjust her royal role? And I said it before in the last video, I just keep thinking about this. If she had adjusted to her royal role and actually given a crap and not been horrible to everybody, she actually probably would have had the fame that she was seeking. That's the irony of it all. She had the opportunity. She just chose to do this with it. So then we go back into the timeline at hand. So we are at baby Archie's christening. And they decided to throw tradition to the wind and piss everybody off once again. So remember, everything is a business deal with these two. So why would the christening be any different? They told everybody they would not be sticking with tradition. They would not be using the palace photographers and all that. Instead, they would be working with their own people and would only share it with their choice of press when they were ready to do so. So scrap tradition. They wouldn't even tell who the godparents were. They were not being transparent with anything. It just goes back to just the hypocrisy. We hate the media. We want privacy, except for we're going to work with the media on our most precious thing, our children, right? And we'll, work with them, sell to them, that sort of thing when it benefits us. But any other time we hate the media, we want privacy. It was soon after this time that they did, I've discussed this at length in other videos, but one of the worst things I think they did, there's so many bad things to choose from, but this really bothers me. They were invited to Balmoral because the Queen wanted them to spend quality family time with her and the other family members on the grounds. And Lady C goes in to explain, as we know, Balmoral was the place that the Queen loved. It's where she felt like she could be herself, let her hair down, and just have family time, right? And just, I guess, be a person, live and not be the Queen for a few minutes. So the Queen invited them to bring Archie to Balmoral for this time, and the response was no, the baby was too young to travel the distance. So what did they do? Instead, they decide to fly with Archie a farther distance to go stay with Elton John and David Furnish and their kids in the south of France. Nice, huh? Really nice. It's your granny. She's 90-something years old at this point. And yeah, this is how you choose to spend your time, of course. So that's what makes me hate Harry, too, because he never would put his foot down. So when Harry and Meghan managed to use private jets 4 times in 11 days while lecturing ordinary people about the need to keep their carbon footprint small, they were setting themselves up to be called out by the press. You know how they hate that. Then Lady C brings this up, and I'm so glad she did, because I remember hearing this, but I couldn't remember where I heard this, and I hadn't brought it up in a video. But this was about the time where, quote, Harry and Meghan were so concerned about the state of the planet and the effects of climate change that they would never be immoral enough to have more than 2 children. So I remember this. Harry gave a speech about this. I believe it was, I might have this wrong, but I believe it was at the Sicily Google Camp meeting, Google Camp conference in Italy, where the hypocrites of them all were having a climate change meeting, all these celebrities, with 114 separate gas-guzzling private planes there. And they would be ferried to and fro to these huge yachts that were waiting for them. You talk about hypocritical. There you go. There you go. And again, I've said it before. I don't begrudge anybody using a private plane or boat, whatever. However you want to get there, whatever. It's just the hypocrisy. Don't turn around and lecture the rest of us on climate change and how you're superior and you will not be having a 3rd child to protect the planet when you're doing things like that. It's just absolutely ridiculous. But they did that to poke, we can all see it. It's a jab at William and Catherine, who, of course, have 3 children. And I'm sorry, but if you're already being suspicious as hell about your babies and your baby's origins and that whole thing that we've been discussing and whether or not, you carried them and what, I just don't think you'd make a definitive statement like that. Like, we will not be having a 3rd child. If you're all about privacy, you keep that to yourself. If you're, organically having these babies, then you wouldn't necessarily say for sure we are not having a 3rd unless she followed it up with Harry got snipped, right? So I'm just saying, none of it makes any sense. This is why I'm hollering into this microphone. None of it makes any sense. They make the worst choices of any human beings ever, and they're petty, spoiled, selfish children. Which Lady C backs up by saying, competitiveness, spitefulness, point scoring were the latest adjectives being used to describe the couple's conduct. But I did find it funny because not long ago there were rumors swirling that maybe they were going to have a 3rd baby. And I thought, of course. Well, one, because it'd bring the attention back to them, and because they're hypocrites and they already made this speech about we're just going to have 2 because whatever their stupid reasoning was. You know what I mean? None of it makes any sense. Okay, so then we go into the 21st of June, 2019. This is when Dumb and Dumber decided to trademark over 100 items under their brand Sussex Royal. They were casting a very wide net, although they claimed to be doing this for their humanitarian work. The categories covered were so extensive that the only reasonable conclusion to come to was that this was a straightforward endeavor at commercial exploitation with possible political overtones. Okay, so Lady C goes into some of the materials that they had marked under Sussex Royal. You ready for this? Printed educational materials, printed publications, books, educational books, textbooks, magazines, newspapers, periodicals, diaries, art books, notebooks, greeting cards, stationery, office requisites. Let's see here. Clothing, footwear, headgear. Headgear? I want to make a joke about Meghan and headgear, but I'll resist. I'm a grown-up. T-shirts, coats, jackets, trousers, sweaters, jerseys, dresses, pajamas. Pajamas. Okay, I'm going to wear Sussex Royals pajamas. Suits, sweatshirts, caps, hats, bandanas, socks, neckwear, sportswear. My God. Just the idea that she would be pushing fashion onto anybody else is also laughable as well. But just absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. They were planning this move into the world of commerce. This is, of course, strictly forbidden for senior members of the royal family. And just like we know, they didn't care. Then Lady C goes into that Vogue edition, which we've talked about, where Meghan had guest edited or whatever they called her for that stupid Vogue edition that ended up not doing so well. And it sounds like Meghan was a nightmare on set. We talked about that a little bit in Revenge, and then I believe it came up in Courtiers. But Lady C explains that she was the one that reached out. Meghan was the one that reached out, not the other way around. Vogue didn't reach out to her. She reached out to them. And by doing that, it removed the cachet of the invitation and replaced it with a degree of pushiness that she's so well known for. But it made her come across as, quote, frothy and frivolous. So dedicating an issue to sociological subject like women who are forces of change in society became, in British eyes, quote, a bizarre mix of superficial and the profound. I'd like to remind you all, in case you didn't hear my earlier coverage of it, one of the people she put as this Women for Change was the lady that hired her on Suits. I mean, come on. The palace was trying to redirect her energy into anything but herself, but of course she didn't want to play along with that. I think Lady C is being kind here because she says Meghan and Harry were oblivious to the consequences that might adversely affect the monarchy. I'm going to go out on a limb and say, well, I think Harry stays oblivious, but I think Meghan is not. I think she knew exactly what she was doing. So further playing into Meghan's political aspirations, around this time, she ended up inviting Hillary Clinton and her daughter Chelsea for tea at Frogmore Cottage. And then Lady C points out that Meghan made sure that the world knew about the visit. So it began to look as if Meghan was playing a game and that she was doing it with skill. Again, that's a quote from Lady C. I'm going to go ahead and say I think everybody was on to her antics by this time. So this was about the time that they left for that 10-day tour of South Africa. They were still pretending to be working royals at this point. So Lady C points out that everybody was hoping that Meghan and Harry's tour would be successful because a constant run of bad publicity is in no one's interest, except possibly the subject who wishes to be presented as a victim. Where have we seen that before? So it was during this tour, some of those fashions. So Lady C says Meghan opted for high street fashion rather than couture. So that way she wouldn't stand out quite so bad by the poverty-stricken that were around her. I still say bullshit because this was the tour where in South Africa, these two were giving those interviews and, again, claiming to be victims at this point. Interesting thing here, again, I'm on page 271, is Lady C goes into there were actually battles being fought behind the scenes between the couple and the financial controllers for the Duchy of Cornwall, who were liable for the expenses of Meghan's wardrobe. In the months since her marriage, she had gone through some $2 million for clothes alone. She never wore the same item twice, and virtually everything was couture. As the costs mounted and the courtiers tried to keep the tab down, Meghan and Harry doggedly refused to relent, stating in no uncertain terms that she had to look good and that I'm sorry, I couldn't get through that part without laughing, and they weren't about to cut any corners for penny pinchers. The nerve of these two. The absolute nerve. And again, I find it funny because I have been doing deep dives on the, quote, fashion. So if you didn't see those videos, definitely check them out because, some of those looks are so bad. But again, she couldn't be bothered to wear the same thing twice. She didn't want to be down to earth or relatable. Just, the complete opposite of Catherine. Just disgusting. But I'm going to end this here. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really sincerely appreciate it. I was heated in this one. I hope you enjoyed it. I enjoyed recording it. Again, a huge thank you if you've been with me the whole time, and a huge thank you and welcome if you're new here. I just can't believe how many subscribers I've had in the last couple of days. It's kind of blowing me away. So if you haven't already, please do hit that subscribe button, hit that thumbs up. You know the drill. If you want, I do have merch available. I do the recollections may vary and make it make sense because none of this makes any sense. Make it make sense. I say it all the time. Make it make sense. I'll put the link in the comments or the description of the video, so check that out. But a huge thank you for being here and supporting me. If you want to further support the show, definitely check out Patreon. We just did Gwyneth Paltrow's Goop and her court case. We've been talking about that over there. What else? I got one coming out on Hilaria Baldwin, so check that out. And lots on Hank and Skank, Harold and Fraud, Harry and Meghan. So check that out. That's patreon.com/Real Housewives Recaps. We put out stuff every couple of days over there, so definitely check that out. I do want to give a huge thank you and shout out to my executive producers, which you can also become at patreon.com. So a huge thank you to Linda. Thank you, Melissa. Thank you, Paige and Teresa. Thank you, Mary and Amy. Thank you, Mr. K. Thank you, Kay. Thank you, Shauna, Brenda. Thank you, Aaron and Frank. Thank you, Kristen. Thank you, Ann M. Thank you, Amanda. Thank you, Ann H. Thank you, Karen and Corey. Thank you, Kay King. Thank you, Glennis. Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Dewey. Thank you, Patty. Thank you, Adair Becker. Thank you, Erica. Thank you to Amber. Thank you, Annette. Thank you, Barb G. Thank you, Diana LOL. Thank you, Andrea. Thank you to Allison B. Thank you, Jean. Lori. Thank you, Pauline. Thank you, KT. Thank you, Jolene. Thank you, Stromboli. Thank you, Catherine and Carla. Thank you, Lois. And thank you, Lucy H. I'm so glad you're all here and supporting the show. I really appreciate it, and I couldn't do it without you. And again, check out Patreon if you want to become an executive producer, and I'll give you a thank you as well. Guys, have the best day and a great weekend. I got lots of stuff coming out. So check back. Lots. I'm so excited about all this. Lots of fun stuff coming out. So check back. I'll talk to you again soon. Bye-bye.